In this lesson, we'll add the brake rotors to the motorcycle. So these metal pieces right here are what we're talking about adding here on the front as well as the back. And you can see it's just a flat metal plate ring that has a bunch of holes cut out of it, and the caliper attaches on and grabs onto there when you want to brake. So to create this, I'm going to start by using some splines, and I'm going to use this again as a kind of a rough scale. So I'll drag out just a simple circle. Okay, go ahead and get that kind of sized appropriately. All right, now I want to go ahead and convert this to an editable spline and select the segments. And let's go down and divide this up. So I'll divide this into 3. So we get something like that. Let's select the spline now. And let's go up and outline this. So that means I'm going to create a new copy of this in here. So go ahead and outline that. Let me go ahead and dial that in. So you get something like that. You can always go in and resize this just by grabbing that new spline and just kind of sizing that out. Okay, it's part of the same editable spline. So now let's go ahead and just drop this up along the origin here. Okay, let me go ahead and turn off the background and just drop this right in the middle here. Okay, now we need to create the holes for this. So again, we're going to go ahead and create a circle. I'm going to start a new shape here, and let's just kind of create it right along the top. We'll create a small little circle here. Move that down. Let's go ahead and hold down Shift and create a copy of that. Okay, copy that. And then let's go ahead and attach those together. So I'll convert one of them to an editable spline. And then I can go ahead and attach the other one. All right. And so now we need to go ahead, and I want to rotate these around a little bit. Let me go ahead and just modify these and put them right in the middle. I want to rotate this around this center point. So one of the quickest ways to do that is just to use the working pivot, which at this point I haven't moved it, so it's right at the origin. So that means I can just kind of rotate these around in a circle. All right. And so the first one, I want to create a copy and move them down a little bit. So I know that I want to snap this to 10 degrees. So I'm going to use the angle snap toggle, and you can change all of the settings in here. This is going to snap it by 5 degrees. Okay. So I'm going to hold down Shift while I do this so I can create a copy. I go 5 degrees, 10 degrees, and let's say OK, and we'll create a copy of that. Now in the editable spline, I'm going to go ahead and grab these splines, and I don't want to use the working pivot to move them, so I'm going to turn that off for now. Turn off our angle snap, and let's go ahead and use the local, and I'll just pull these down a little bit to just offset them a little. All right, and now I want to go ahead and attach these and these. So it creates one editable spline. Let's now go back again, use the working pivot. Okay, and this point, and this is kind of the smallest chunk that I can break these down and be able to just copy these around. So now I'm going to go back to rotate, turn on angle snap, and this time I'm going to go 20 degrees. Okay, so that evenly spaces them out. Say OK, I'm going to create copies, and I want to create 17. Say OK, and that fills that out with the holes, and you can see they're offset every other one. All right, so now what we want to do is go ahead and attach all of these splines together. So I'll just take this outer one, go into attach, and just start going along and attaching all these splines. Okay. Go ahead and attach all of these. Just clicking on all these splines. Okay. So we now have this one editable spline with all of these splines inside. So now we need to create some geometry from this. Give it a little bit of thickness. So right now it's just a kind of a spline shape there. So to add a little bit of thickness, let's go ahead and turn off our working pivot. All we need to do is go ahead and add an extrude modifier to this. So go ahead and add an extrude. And there you can see it's still pretty flat, but we want to change the amount. So go ahead and dial that up a little bit. Okay, turn off our snapping. And we can change any of these amounts. So if we want it to be 2 inches, maybe 1 inch. Okay, maybe we want it to be half an inch or so. Okay, we can dial any of those things in that we want. Okay, we can change the number of segments. So you can see we have a certain number of segments along the from top to bottom. We can change that number. Okay, we can choose to cap the end or the other side if we want to. And this is, the output that we're going to have. In this case, we're outputting a mesh. Okay, and I can, move this around, get it in front of the wheel here that we have. All right. And so this isn't something that you would smooth. Okay, you would just leave it kind of like this. Okay, so it's fairly high poly because it has all of these cutouts. Okay, it's kind of similar to what you could do with a Boolean and some geometry, but this is just using splines to actually create this. So you can really get some neat effects. Okay, for this particular one, you could come in now and just collapse this down. We'll go ahead and collapse that, convert it to an editable poly, and then we could take these polygons, some of these polygons anyway, okay, and come in and start to, if we go into the side view here, start to add in some of these pieces in here. So we've got things going in, things going out. So I would just alternate, maybe pick 3 or 4 faces and then skip the same number and go around. So we got 4. I'd probably pick right in here and just go by the where the holes are. So you could maybe take those 3. Okay, and then maybe those 3. Okay, and you could just kind of extrude those out. Take that length down. Okay. And then you could go ahead and grab these vertices and we'll go back to world. And in this case, I'm just pulling them out. If you have all these extruded out, you could come in and just use your scale to modify that a little bit if you want to. You could also just add that as separate geometry back there. Okay, for this one, let's look at this guy. For this one, you want to do the exact same thing that we did on the front, but you want to, instead of creating those holes going straight out from the radius, you want to create this angle. And so you would just create one of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You'd create the 4 circle splines, just using the inner and outer in the same way. Add the 4 circles to that, and then just again, as a group and using your working pivot, just duplicate those around. So you end up with all that kind of radial look. And then you just do the exact same procedure that we just did using the extrude modifier from the modifier list. Okay. So if you want to, you can come in and add this sort of a lip in here, or we can just use our bolts to create that. So whatever you want to do on that. But that's how you get turn the splines, multiple splines, into that sort of a flat piece with a lot of cutout. And your cutout can be anything. It doesn't have to be a circle. It could be, a duck. It could be whatever you want to draw out with the spline. You can cut out from there. So you can get some really complex shapes built out. Now this isn't really meant for animation, so this is a very rigid piece that's not going to deform at all. So we can build it this way. Otherwise, if you're going to have any sort of deformation, you probably don't want to do this because of the way that this geometry is. You can see that right there. All right, so let's go ahead and in the next lesson kind of add the front and back wheels. And so we'll modify the wheels and kind of widen that up for the back wheel. All right, so we'll go ahead and do that next.